So we've had a good overview of what the market looks like in general globally, and specifically this question of operating systems. Now it's time to have a discussion on this topic, and your moderator for this discussion, stepping from behind the scenes in front of the camera instead, is Jörn Krieger, who runs all of the marketing activities for HbbTV Association, as well as being a respected industry journalist, trade journalist, and many of you will be familiar with him. And we thought, who better than to host this roundtable discussion and another one that we will have later in the afternoon than Jörn. Jörn, I'll let you introduce your panelists.
Thank you very much. Great to be back on the stage here. And at the HbbTV Symposium, been working a lot in the background, as Owen said, so I'm very happy to welcome you on the stage this time. We've got 3 roundtables at the symposium today. If you've looked at the program, this is the first one of the core topics of this year's symposium, expanding into new markets with HbbTV, and we'll be picking up a lot of the things that Damien has addressed in his keynote. Then the DTG leads a panel on a roundtable on what's the role of HbbTV in an IP-centric future. And then towards the end of the day, I have the pleasure of moderating another roundtable on making money with HbbTV, a very important topic, of course, for all of us, because somebody has to pay the bills. That's why we've saved the best for last, to say it in this order. And now I'd like to welcome the participants, but before I do that, Owen is here and he's going to keep an eye on the audience. So whenever you have a question, this is an interactive format. It's all about dialogue and exchange. So please raise your hand, make yourself known, and then Owen will approach you with a microphone. And if you want to stay anonymous and ask all the tricky questions, use the Slido system. We won't be able to trace who's been asking. So maybe this is also an interesting platform for you if you want to know a bit more about the delicate questions. Anyway, let's welcome the participants. It's my pleasure to welcome Mousa, Fakher, Business Development Manager, Video Business Unit of Eutelsat. Philipp Rotermund is the next speaker, CEO and co-founder of wedotv. Philipp, welcome to the stage. This time. And last speaker, Laurent Werner, Senior Pre-Sales Manager at Didomi. Welcome, Laurent. So let's sit down and get started straight away. Laurent, there's your spot over there, and jump into the action. So you're all familiar with Eutelsat, of course, one of the sponsors of the symposium this year. So I'd like to hear more about the activities based on HbbTV that you're using to assist companies using your infrastructure to expand into new markets. I know one of them is sitting next to you. So maybe you can say something about the role of Eutelsat as an enabler for expanding into new markets.
Yep. Thank you, Jörn. First, I would thank everyone here and my fellow panelists. We are in Eutelsat. We are introducing some new activities for new markets, new video services in over satellite. And of course, with HbbTV, we are now able to provide some new activities. First, it is what we are doing with wedotv. He was one of the very early adopters of what we are calling fast on satellite, which is to have a hybridized distribution of fast channels on both streaming and satellite at the same time.
I think you were the first to actually broadcast fast channels on satellite, enabling them to address new audiences.
Yes, and the idea, all of the idea came from what my colleagues here have mentioned, that satellite is still relevant. It has a very huge audience. It is still generating money in advertising. But we need to realize the fact that streaming is here, it's not coming. And the hybridized solution of satellite and streaming is I think, a way to move forward. And of course, we are also providing to the market what we call Sat TV. It is a UX application that is on set-top boxes, and Sat TV Connect is on connected TVs. And it is also based on HbbTV and DVB-I. And the whole idea is to enhance the user experience of the viewers and to effectively give a streaming-like viewership experience to the viewers. So we're doing this in Europe, and we're doing this in the MENA region, which I think is a way to expand into new markets, where MENA is a little bit more free-to-air, satellite-focused region.
Okay, so fast channels on satellite and the SAT-TV UX are two examples of using HbbTV
Yes.
For this mission. And as I was saying, Philipp is sitting right next to you,
Yeah.
who's been using one of these tools. And maybe Philipp, first a couple of words on wedotv for people who don't know you yet, even though you've been a winner of the Newcomer of the Year award, I think 2 years ago in Naples. And then how you've been using Eutelsat and HbbTV to successfully expand into new markets.
Yeah, thank you for having me. We run a global television network with a streaming service. We don't like the word fast so much because in the end they are free-to-air channels.
Linear.
Or linear, yes.
Linear isn't dead, it's just re-emerging as fast.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, when we started the business 8 years ago, it was only a streaming platform. Now we're running 20 channels across the globe. Thanks to partners like Eutelsat, we are able to expand also in areas in the world where we never would thought of. And going back to Damian's slide over there, we are building apps to all those crazy manufacturer operating systems. It's a lot of work. But then also referring to Vincent's speech earlier, with HbbTV, you build one app and you're going to be across all those devices. And if you count up the numbers, I didn't do that, but this was, I think, almost 300 million homes or something like that, which been enabled. So that's great. And 2 years ago, was it two and a half almost, we started in Italy the first time. Thanks also to Luca and Tivusat. They helped us to bring down the channels from Eutelsat to Tivusat. HbbTV enabled red button functionality, but moreover, and that is, I think, the most important, and you said that, Jörn, earlier, who's paying the bill? So we need to monetize, and we created audience measurement and ad insertion on regular free-to-air satellite channels. Not only in Europe, I think in Europe we're running already 5 channels on satellites, in the Middle East is 1, but we're trying to expand in many, many more markets with the power of HbbTV.
I think a couple of keywords have been mentioned already. Expanding into new markets, monetization, but also enabling other companies to expand their business in that way. And I think Didomi is a perfect example, one of the companies working in the background to enable business growth. And so, Laurent, perhaps a few words on Didomi, if some people don't know you, and the way you assist companies to grow their business.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Didomi has been created 10 years ago, when basically GDPR started to be enforced and being implemented in Europe. So while discussing with most of you here, if you're from Europe, you probably know GDPR, consent, privacy. If you're outside Europe, it's something completely new that you're discovering. And it's something that has multiple layers. And that's where it is very difficult to expand into new markets, not only the European one, but we can take, for example, Turkish one, the North American one, etc. Because not only you will get a consent on a device, you will get one on a country, and you will get one with the different technology you're using. I met, for example, someone from Google, I met someone from platforms, etc. They are expecting a consent from us, coming from them, or collected from them, that is sent through Eutelsat, etc. So basically, we are enabling advertisement on all those environments, and the idea is that we are making it as easy and the less complex as it is, because it can become very complex. We can see that later. I don't know if we need to go to the little small one. Small word quickly on Turkey, because you do have KVKK, which is equivalent to GDPR now. So basically, you need to collect a consent, not only to activate trackers, analytics, cookies, etc., but you will need to collect this consent to have, for example, targeted ads. So it is something that we are helping wedotv, we are helping the devices manufacturer, we're helping the networks, etc., to gather those consent to make sure that there is as little revenue loss as possible, because at the end of the day, everyone is expecting some revenue from all of those infrastructure.
Okay, so I think that's very interesting. I mean, you can't just jump into a new market and start your business. You need to first keep an eye on the regulation, on the legal situation, the framework, the conditions, because otherwise it could end up very costly for you. We've heard about letters from lawyers already in John's speech, so be careful and ask people like Laurent first. We're talking about experiences and learnings now. Mousa, maybe some of the things that you have learned by expanding or enabling expansion into new markets, I think we'd be very keen on hearing that, because, I mean, obviously, you make mistakes, you fail sometimes, and that's the way you learn, because otherwise you won't learn. So in order to prevent others to make the same or meet the same challenges, what have you learned and what can you share with us?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is when I think every company, when they start to do a new service, they fall into the same trap. They expect that the same concept, the same model will work all over the place. So what works in Europe will work in the MENA, what works in MENA will work in Africa. But you get then into the specificities of each market. And what we found out is while trying to work in Hotbird in Europe region over our Hotbird satellite, that Europe has a fragmentation in the content, in the language, in the cultures of the countries. While in MENA, although they have some kind of homogeneity in language and culture, we find that the infrastructure in some regions are not well established. And for HbbTV applications, the TV sets are not used for example, for the reception of the satellite. They are usually the reception comes through the set-top box, then to the connected TV. So even for connected TVs, they are not really benefiting from the full applications of the HbbTV. Because there is the set-top box as a step between the reception of the satellite and the TV set. So I think this is maybe one of the main...
yeah, that's an interesting challenge, the technical situation when there's... I mean, we're used from Europe that HbbTV is default enabled by the TV set manufacturer, and it can receive TV via satellite, via cable, via terrestrially, and IP, and in other regions it's not by default enabled, but also you have the set-top box challenge that we heard earlier on in France is one of the big, the big blocking things really for HbbTV. We have that in Germany as well, where companies like Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone, they don't have HbbTV on their set-top boxes. So we need to somehow find a way to still address these households.
They actually have, but they don't allow it. That's the problem.
See? So that's one learning from you. But before we continue, Owen, I think, has got a question for us.
So I'm going to just keep an eye on the room as well, but there is a question in Slido. By the way, the Slido hashtag is HbbTV Istanbul. All one word, HbbTV Istanbul. And I don't think the capitalization matters, but if it does, it's HbbTV in the normal way we capitalize it, and Istanbul with a capital I. The question, and it's put to Eutelsat, but I think anybody could come in on it, and if we talk about expanding into new markets, well, this is a big one. Is there a way to expand HbbTV in China?
So, this is a very good question. At least so for us in Eutelsat, we have an office in China. I'm not really dealing a lot with the Chinese market, so I can't really give you a proper answer to your question. But whoever asked this question, maybe connect with me later on, and we can discuss it with our Chinese office.
Someone in the audience knows more about China. I know that, Owen, that goes back to you now. At last DVB World in Munich, there was a Chinese delegation very interested in DVB-I, and of course DVB-I is very much associated with HbbTV, so maybe that kind of rounds up that topic. But we know there is an interest in HbbTV and DVB-I in China. Laurent?
Yeah, just to add a bit, because not only on the privacy, but generally speaking, China has privacy in place. And not only that, but they do ask for data processing of any type of data to be done within China. So they have data residency, which means that you must use infrastructure based in China, and it's a big challenge for a lot of companies. You take Didomi, for example, We run the solution on AWS. They don't have AWS, so it's very difficult to transport anything. We do have way to do sending, all those information to servers to them, but it's probably the same for you. It's basically there is requirements specific to China that actually make business very difficult on top of the existing contractual and commercial one.
It's not easy anywhere, because otherwise everybody would do it. But Philipp, that gives the ball back to you. You've been addressing the set-top box challenge, and I mean, maybe let's look at it this way. You've been expanding from your base in Switzerland towards the German-speaking market. The UK was one of the first markets you addressed, and then you went to Latin America, you went to the MENA region, the Arab, the Asian countries, and some of the experiences and some of the challenges you've met there.
I mean, a lot of challenges, and I cannot recommend anyone to start such a business again.
You're very open. That's what we like.
I have a lot of.
That's why you're on the stage.
No, I mean, first of all, I think we are in an eyeball business, so we are selling eyeballs to the advertisers in the end, and therefore I always say, I mean, obviously content is king, but distribution is King Kong. So you want to be in every household in the market you're targeting. That means you want to have your app on all the app stores. You want to be in all the television networks, like we talked about Deutsche Telekom and Vodafone. You want to be in the smaller cable households. You want to be on satellite. So this is one thing you can overcome, but there's a big cost associated with it to go into all these things. We have in Germany this funny thing like Einspeiseentgelt, where you have to pay
carriage fees.
Carriage fees to you have to pay. Same thing we just launched on Freeview in the UK, so you have to pay money to be carried. And Damien also said that earlier here about Orange, etc. That's an issue which in some countries is even by law. So, and then it's the question how you can monetize or make that money back. I mean, the carriage fees. I'm not talking about content, people, and everything what we have to do. And then the monetization is a big thing where content plays a big role, but then also if you go onto satellite, in the old days there was nothing unless you got measured by an audience panel, which is also complicated and cost a lot of money. And that's where really HbbTV helped us to monetize that audience, and not only the digital part of the business, but also we created our own audience panel. And this number we can sell to the advertisers.
You'd like to elaborate on that, Mousa? The question was really, what's the trick here to enable this revenue stream to be activated? Because somebody, as I said earlier, has to pay the bills in the end.
So at least what we started to find is through the HbbTV, through the implementation of FAST on both satellite and streaming, you can actually diversify where the advertising revenue is being monetized, is being get. And you can start to move towards providing targeted advertising, addressable market advertising, even on a free-to-air satellite environment, which means that you are doubling, tripling the opportunity of advertising monetization, which is if you leave it as a satellite alone, we saw that it is a little bit declining, but having this opportunity to introduce the addressable market advertising with HbbTV and such implementation, it really opens up an opportunity to utilize the extensive reach of the satellite, which is still the case in many of the regions.
So you're using the reach of satellite to, for example, in Philipp's example, to use that reach for fast channels to expand into new markets, so using the giant reach of satellite. But a very technical question, I know it's a question on Slido, but that adds nicely to what you've just said. Philipp, how do you technically transmit the channels? Is it like a real broadcast signal? Is it occupying bandwidth on satellite? Because that's expensive, as we know, especially if it's in HD. Or you're just using a satellite signaling that triggers a stream in a viewer's smart TV or set-top box?
No, we really uplink the channels.
You really broadcast the channels
real broadcast,
linearly?
Either on the satellites, but what I said earlier also around Freeview, we had to buy capacity to be there. Our pitch there is very easy. Again, we're selling eyeballs, so we want to be, every home should be able to watch us. And then the HbbTV enables us to, either load a stream out of the internet or just do the ad insertion.
That's for the ad insertion. That's where the HbbTV bit jumps in, and that's what kind of separates you from the legacy linear TV.
Yes, the ad insertion is one thing. That's where we, kind of targeting only the digital homes. But then also the data we get, we are creating our own audience panel, what I said earlier, in every market. So just an easy example. Let's say, we are reaching 1 million people like every day or whatever. And a certain territory has 10 million households. That means in the digital reach, we're measuring 10% market share. We could assume that also on the non-connected homes, we will have the 10% because that's how Barb and AGF and,
the classics.
They will tell you it's much more complex than that,
yeah.
but in the end, it's that. And that helps also to monetize only the broadcast stream itself.
Okay, so that's that question from Slido. Owen, is that still relevant?
So there are a few interesting questions. Two of them relate to set-top boxes. One is just a straight question. Maybe, Philipp, you have this information. Do we know what is the percentage of set-top boxes that support HbbTV? Any idea?
I don't know the percentage, but 100 million I heard today in the early speech. 100 million homes are connected these days.
And this may be a question that you actually want to bounce to somebody in the room, Jörn. Instead, what does the HbbTV Association do to engage more with set-top box manufacturers to deploy HbbTV on set-top boxes? I mean, is this something Vincent
Maybe Vincent would like to address that.
Is there a dialogue?
We've discovered the challenge of set-top boxes that are not enabled for HbbTV or just not capable of carrying HbbTV. So I think there's ADB2, for example, as one of the ways.
Yeah, there is ADB2, but let's face it, ADB2 is not a cooperative way of addressing set-top box because it's really crossing the set-top box, which is a way to be efficient. I think UK is an interesting example where when Freeview Play started, there was a strong emphasis to connect to set-top box maker, and some large brands like Umax, etc., became HbbTV compliant. I think it is still the case with UView, Freeview, but maybe some English colleagues here could even better comment. Then there is a totally different example, which is France. France is a set-top box market very strongly, and I would say if you go to any telecom operator and ask, would you like to make your set-top box HbbTV compliant, probably the answer I would get is not over my dead body.
Well, we're probably coming down to revenue streams, revenue sharing, and data, metadata, all of these things, and who owns the data? Big question. We could probably do another roundtable on that alone.
There's one more question here, Jörn, and I don't want to sidetrack you on this, so it may be just a quick answer from Didomi or wedotv, and it's about DVB native IP, DVB NIP, plus DVB-I, plus HbbTV. So are you considering new ideas and products that leverage DVB NIP?
I mean, of course, we want to be part of that new world. So we're trying to lobby that we will be part of those lists, etc. On DVB NIP, I'm not quite sure how that can work because I haven't seen a use case yet, but definitely DVB-I, yes. Maybe
for discussion tomorrow even.
Absolutely.
Back to you, Jörn.
Okay, thank you. Laurent, you want to?
No, it's a bit the same idea. Ultimately, when it comes to Didomi, we just try to be flexible. We have customer running custom front end with our API because we do have old TV before 2015 with very small processor, very difficult to push anything on them. So basically, we're not afraid of getting the hands dirty with you and just working on something a bit specific to those new environment and spaces that are coming.
Okay.
So maybe on the DVB native IP topic, we've implemented some platform in Peru based on DVB native IP, so for the implementation, it was for a specific reason, specific use case for education during COVID. But what I would say is I don't think that there was let's say a collaboration with HbbTV on that part. As a standard, the DVB native IP, it's an IP stream, so the reception is also is connected to the internet at the end of the day. But this is something I think we are actually studying on how to do it, at least in Eutelsat, since we have a use case for it already established. So any questions on that, I'm willing to discuss it later on.
So if there are any questions, good point, just raise your hand or use the Slido platform. Meanwhile, I'd like to see that there is a lot happening, and what we heard now, DVB NIP, there's also DVB-I, there's the HbbTV TA specification for targeted advertising. So you see this is a market that is evolving, that is responding to needs by the industry players, and we've also heard from John's speech about the native IP, an IP-based HbbTV version that they are working on. And so this is a market that's not stagnating, it's developing together with the industry, along with the industry, and I think that's why it's very important to be in exchange with you, with the audience, with the market players, and of course hear from experienced market players like you about the experiences you've made, and maybe also what you would recommend, what you recommend to do and not to do. So maybe Laurent, what have you learned from your customers? What can you recommend and pass on to the others that maybe approach you and say, look, what can we do to expand our business using your services?
So the first one, it's not especially on expanding, but it's on optimizing. I've been working more than 2 years now with Canal+, and basically we've been working not only on no SDK policy to basically adapt to any Balkan country, Arab country, the Turkish market, everywhere basically where they want or will expand, but they want to retrieve consent and information in their CDP, Snowflake, and all these data lake to enrich the advertisement and basically, just provide better targeted advertisement. So that's one lane definitely that we're able to do, collect consent, enrich information, get better ads. And the second one that we were discussing, and that is actually very tricky on HbbTV, is everything about identifying the TV, the device itself. I've been discussing with UView, for example, ad mongrel, backscreen, etc. The problem that we have, it's not a problem. We can synchronize content around multiple channels, but the problem is the content is channel-based, yet you have a content on the TV device itself. And the thing is, there is no way to unify anything. You don't have a common storage that you can share the content. You need an ID to do that. Canal+ is solving it by having locked-in environment. But again, if you're doing broadcasting, what's your solution there? How do we do? Do we make some sort of matching like IP, region, device, and we try to generate something? So that is kind of like a big challenge that I'm discovering, and it seems that there is not a universal answer yet on that.
Okay, well that's why panels like this are still needed, and why we need people like Philipp to share their experiences and lessons learned.
I would say partner with people. What we're doing on the content side, we're partnering with the content studios. For example, we're running 3 channels with ZDF Studios, the German public broadcasters, because they don't know this world. So they, instead of doing this themselves, they work with us. And then on the other end, we partner with companies like Eutelsat, where we're trying to create new things together, because, as a single person or company, you cannot know everything. So I think partnerships are key.
Partnerships are important. I think that's what we could all sign. Mousa, your lessons learned?
Yeah, I think I would agree actually with Philipp on this, that partnerships is very important. Because at the end of the day, each company would know what they are doing, but they can't know everything in the market. And for us, we didn't know a lot about what the streaming world is doing. And I think for Philippe, the first discussion we had, they didn't know a lot of what is satellite and what we are doing. even outside of that, the partnerships for everything, even for if you want to do audience measurement, I think, which is also a very important topic on advertising monetization. You need a partner there. You need a partner for the privacy, to make sure that you are GDPR compliant and everything. So partnerships is very key, and I would say audience measurement is very key for any
absolutely, and that sort of draws the line towards the monetization, of course, because that creates metadata, the audience measurement. And audience measurement, by the way, is growing now. It's becoming more and more important, and we are planning a webinar on that from the HbbTV webinar series. So if you want to participate in that, please let us know. Thank you very much to the participants, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.